to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Well, hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. My name is Barry Schwenk. I'm a veterinarian, a pastor, and your host as we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. Have you often thought that you would have to make a decision between maybe clinical practice and working internationally? What if I told you that you could have your cake and maybe be able to eat it too? I'm joined today by Dr. Mack Boyd, who has been able to do just that. Mack, just like me, you like to have your cake and eat it too. And so I can't wait to talk to you about this. I appreciate you taking time to chat with me today.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks.
It's been a little while since you and I have had a chance to talk, and so it's great to be able to catch up a little bit. For folks listening, I really wanted to talk about this topic where for a lot of practitioners, there's kind of like this tug of war with being able to exist in clinical practice here in the U.S., but also kind of having this pull towards missions and not knowing how to balance those two things together. And you have been able to do both of those. And I want to talk to you about that because I think maybe your story might resonate with some folks. How long have you been connected to CVM?
Well, that goes back to the year 2001.
Okay.
So I was a 1983 graduate of Texas A&M University, and I had been out in mixed practice for quite a few years at that time. And I was feeling like, because of the testimony of a great Sunday school teacher that my wife and I had, he was a private pilot who spent a lot of his spare time flying missionaries around to different places. And I thought, wow, that is really cool. I wonder if there's something that I could do from a veterinary medicine standpoint that could be helpful along those lines. And so I started making some inquiries and got connected with CVM and got reconnected with my old friend and classmate, Dr. Glenn Gaines from here in Texas.
Oh,
and, yeah, so I've told this story a few times, so some of you may have heard it, but so I got Glenn's phone number and called him up one September day, and way back in 2001, and we got reacquainted a little bit. And I said, "Hey, I was sort of wondering, what's the opportunities that I could, I could go out and do some work on the mission field as a veterinarian." And he goes like, "Well, there's a team of students from Texas A&M that's going to Haiti in December, and they need a sponsor, and they can't go unless they have one or two sponsors that they don't have right now. So you want to go to Haiti?" I thought, oh, wow. I really just kind of called to say hello. I really wasn't thinking about going to Haiti. Just when he said Haiti, I thought, wow, nothing good crossed my mind. Little did I know. So I said, I need to think about that a little bit, Glenn, pray about it. And I said, let's talk again in a day or two. So we did. And both of us wound up going on that trip. And there've been a lot of trips since then, a lot of good experiences, a lot of stories to tell, a lot of seeing how the Lord has moved amongst lots of different people in lots of different places over the years through veterinary medicine.
That's so you're not the only one that has probably shared a hotel room with Glenn Gaines then. And there might be a long list. I don't know. But it's a great, actually, I was talking with someone earlier today just about the relationship or the nature of relationships within CVM and how important those are and how fruitful those have been over the years, if not for people like Glenn and Kathy to open up their homes and be hospitable and to talk to people about missions and life in general. They've made these huge impacts. So for any of you out there who also have had that Glenn Gaines connection, it's a positive one for sure. So that first trip to Haiti, what was that like for you?
Oh gosh, it was really shocking in a lot of ways. I'd never experienced how things are in a developing nation like Haiti. Somebody said I can tell you about it, but I can't smell it for you. I can't see it for you. I can't experience it for you. You have to experience it for yourself. And so it was very eye opening, but also encouraging to see people there, of faithful people, doing the best they could in under difficult circumstances. And not only that, but missionary short term and long term people serving in tough circumstances. It was really uplifting and inspiring, and really sort of it really was a great spot to get started, and to see what a difference veterinary medicine can make, and how many doors it opens in so many places.
Yeah, it's true. When we talk about missions to some degree, we talk about the things that we're taking to another place, but then also there are the things that we take away, and it's a when done right, there's this mutual exchange that happens, and it's a huge blessing from God to see how that occurs, because you don't always anticipate those things. So you were in practice at the time, you'd already graduated, you were in practice at the time when you went on that first trip. How then did you take that next step? Because you've been on, let's say, more than 2 short-term mission trips in your life, right?
Quite a few over the years, yes.
Yeah.
That's one thing Glenn Gaines warned me about when we went to Haiti. He said, so I'll tell you this, if you do get started going on these short-term trips, you'll never stop. And that turned out to be pretty prophetic. There's been a lot of places, a lot of near and far, lots of trips as close as Mexico, which I'm about in the middle of Texas, and it's not terribly far for me to get to the Mexican border. Did a lot of trips down there over the years to the border towns, doing various different trips and projects down there. As far as the other side of the world, Indonesia is about as far away as you can go. I've been there a few times, and lots of places in between. Really, I can't even, when I start thinking about it, it's a little overwhelming. But you're in some place and you're just sort of having a pinch me moment. Am I really here? Am I really doing this? Is there any way that I would be in this particular spot if it weren't for these efforts that we're trying to make to reach people in other parts of the world?
And
no, I never would have. It's been a real privilege.
That's been so we're talking both large animal and small animal types of projects, right?
Sure. Yeah. In a developing world, I would say mostly livestock, because that's what's really precious to people. But you find that surprisingly, there's also people love animals. Wherever there are people, there are animals in this world, and there's even pets in some of the poorest places that I've been. So it's really heartwarming to see people that are doing the best they can to care for their pets, even under circumstances when it's tough just to care for themselves.
And I think it's important for folks, again, part of the things that I appreciate about the folks that I've had on the podcast is being able to talk about different aspects of veterinary medicine and missions and life in general, because sometimes we get locked into these ideas of what all those things look like, what a veterinarian looks like, what a missionary looks like, what a Christian looks like. And unfortunately, because we're created in an image of a wonderful God, we all kind of reflect different aspects. And so there's a wide and varied expressions of that. And so for people who are listening who might be interested in small animal medicine, there are so many opportunities. We were just talking before we turned the podcast on about your trip to the DR, where there'll be quite a bit of small animal work that, might be able to be done there. Haiti and Native American reservations. There's lots of opportunities for small animal vets as well as large animal veterinarians. So it's good to kind of keep that in perspective. And so more than 20 years of connection to CVM, And is it fair to say that almost every year, let's take those COVID years out because it's kind of hard to discuss those. Is it fair to say that you've been on at least one trip a year since that first trip to Haiti?
I'd say pretty much, yes. And then I've done some other trips with our local church, and but I would say somewhere at least once or twice a year in that span.
And all that is also taking place at the same time while you're in clinical practice. So tell me a little bit about the practice that you're a part of here in the U.S.
It is, yeah. So we have a busy 6-person practice, which does give us a little bit more flexibility, but it has not always been a 6-person practice. When I first became part of this practice, one of the things that attracted me to it was the fact that my former business partner said at the outset, he said, I really believe in a little different mindset than what my mentors believed in. He said, I think we ought to take at least 6 weeks of vacation each per year. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Okay, I agree. We're good.
I agree with that. Yeah. So that was our routine as long as he and I were business partners. And then and we've maintained that even though he's no longer with the practice. And actually, he sadly has passed away since retiring. But that idea of there was a mentality, I think it was pretty prevalent amongst veterinarians who came along after World War II and into the early 60s and 70s, that you work, and work is the most important thing. And sometimes families suffered because of that, and sometimes relationships. And but that's just how it was. 80-hour work weeks were not uncommon, and they're still not uncommon for some people. But we made a conscious decision not to let the practice own us, that we wanted to own the practice and manage it in such a way that we could both spend time with our families and do other things that we enjoyed doing.
And it is indeed a change in mentality. Not only do you have that whole generation of veterinarians that work that way, but then that generation of veterinarians raised up the next generation of veterinarians. Right. And increasingly, we're seeing some of the ripples of those things and that lack of balance. How did you find from a practice standpoint, how effective were you all at working that into the way that you ran or created the culture of your practice?
Well, it just became part of what we did. It was, you'd get a little bit of pushback sometimes from clients. Oh, I guess you're going on another trip somewhere. Yeah, I got some work I need to get done. When can we get on your schedule? But we took that in stride, and I think it made both of us more successful, more able to handle the stress of regular practice, which can be pretty intense, as we all know. And it's overall what's important is faith, family, then work. And so we both tried to sort of put that into practice, and that's just how we operate. That's sort of the culture of our business now.
And it's funny because when you mentioned that you had some pushback, I could almost guarantee that when you came back, there was still work there. It wasn't.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No matter how much time you take away, there's always work when you get back home.
Yeah.
And so did you find that once that pattern was established for your clients, did they come to, was it always kind of a sore spot, or did it become just kind of accepted, this is how things go? And did they begin to appreciate that time?
Yeah. And I actually, yes, I've had some great comments from clients. And I've always been kind of a photography geek. And so I'd always bring back images of places that I've been and people I'd interacted with. And I started making enlargements and framing photos and putting them on the walls of our clinic and exam rooms. And people would ask questions about, like, hey, did you take that? Where was that? And so that would give me an opportunity to talk to them about some of the work that I've been doing in different places. And it's evolved to the point that now it's not unusual at all for somebody to say to me, and now I post a lot of photos on social media as well. And so it's not unusual at all for somebody to say, hey, I saw those images of your last trip. Those were awesome. And tell me about it. And where are you going next? So it's not so much a time frame thing anymore. It's more of tell me something about the work you're doing. I'm really interested in it. And so it's nice to have those conversations with clients and other folks.
Well, for a lot of us, I think that because we grew up in that pattern, it's hard to imagine something outside of that pattern. And yet habits are made to be broken and reestablished. And you can, if you approach it in that way, I appreciate for both you and your partner being able to look beyond that and say, we're going to just establish a new culture, a new way of doing things. And once we get into that rhythm, it's going to be not a detriment, but a net positive for not just for our own health, but for our families, for our clients, for our patients. That trickle down, it creates a tighter, more well-balanced and healthy community overall. So it's during those 6 weeks every year that you take some of that time then to go on mission trips?
Right. Yeah. And it varies. Some of the short-term trips there are not too many opportunities that are less than a week, but there are plenty of things that you can go out and do in a week. I don't think I ever did a trip to the Mexican border that was any much more than a week. And so we would do those once or twice a year. And it really didn't impact anything detrimentally as far as our schedule goes. We were always able to work around it, and then left plenty of time for regular family vacation time and time spent away from the practice. So we've even incorporated it into our offers to new graduates at this point, that they would have 2 weeks of vacation after the first year and an additional week to spend on a mission trip or some worthy effort like that.
Wow. And how has that been received when folks, do they come to you because they know that, or when they come to you and they hear that, what's the look on their face?
I wish I could say that we'd hired a lot of new graduates, but new graduates are a little bit difficult to come by these days. They have a lot of opportunities, and it's great for them, but they have a lot of choices about where they can seek employment and enjoy this great profession. So we're just so far N equals 1. We have one young man that's committed to start with us in the spring, and he's excited about the opportunity of being part of a practice like ours, I think.
Maybe this is going to turn into a commercial for your practice down. And if we're not careful, right, we might be able, who knows? You never know.
Put up a QR code.
That's right. Just scan it and here you go. So when you reflect back, what are some of the big moments where you just kind of pause for a moment and say, wow, this is my life. I've got these two things that I love so much, and God has blessed me in a way that I get to enjoy both of them, and I get to see something. There's some fruit here that I never would have experienced if I hadn't have tried to break this culture and move beyond into something new.
Yeah, I could think back on so many things and sort of, I don't know, I can't think of them all at one time, but I remember one day on that first trip to Haiti, it turned out it rains a lot in Haiti. So it was pouring down rain that day. And just outside the guest house where we were staying, there was a nice big gazebo. And we weren't going to get any work done that day. So I was sitting out under that gazebo out of the rain, but the rain's pouring down around us. and one of the local Haitian guys that was one of our translators came out, and it was just he and I out there. And so he spoke really good English. And so that was nice to have a conversation with him. And it turned to, things were pretty tough in Haiti at that time, and still very challenging place to live and practice your faith. And he said, well, I have a question. If God loves us so much, why do our lives have to be so hard here? Wow. So anyway, we had a nice long conversation about that, and about suffering, and about being faithful and praising the Lord under whatever circumstances we might find ourselves. And so, all these years later, I can still recall that vividly as a memory. Like, wow, this is an unexpected opportunity here. So many times I've said to myself internally, oh, I never thought I'd be doing this. I never thought I'd be here. I remember sitting in a yurt in Mongolia one afternoon, and they said, Doctor, do you like the sheep intestines? And I go, like, yeah, sure.
Always, when you ask that question, always say yes, right?
Yeah. So they passed around a big pan of like everything from inside of a sheep, and I sliced off a hunk of something I didn't recognize and tried to appear that I was really enjoyed it. So, but at the same time, I'm thinking, wow, what a privilege to be sitting here in this place in the middle of literally nowhere with these folks who, I'm the only guy here that looks like me. Wow. I mean, talk about never thought you would do this or be in a place like this. Yeah, that's one of the things that pops up.
And that's the byproduct of your profession and your faith being together. I mean, you take either one of those things away, and that circumstance changes completely. And here you have this place where veterinary medicine and your faith journey kind of collide, and you have those aha moments where you get to watch the sunrise over a new horizon, and get to eat a little sheep intestine, and just appreciate what God has been doing. So for someone who's maybe feeling a little bit of that pull, right? So trying to balance that work life here in the US, but also the desire to go and serve God in a different place. What kind of advice can you give, whether it's a new grad or someone who's currently in practice or owns their own practice? What kind of advice can you give for those folks?
Well, they might sort of be in a spot that I was back in 2001 when I called Glenn up. But I kept going back to Isaiah chapter 6 when the Lord said, "Who shall I send?" And Isaiah, I always pictured Isaiah as saying it something along the lines of, "Here am I, send me, Lord." And but I was more or less saying it like, "Here am I, send me." Really, Lord? Do you really? Is this really something that I should be part of? And I just kept feeling a really strong yes. This is something that I could do and that I should do. And I can't explain it in any way other than I really felt like at the time, and really in all these years since, that it was really something that I was able to do and that I should do. And I really wanted to see how people lived, how believers interacted with each other in other parts of the world, and how what kind of impact could we have by relating with non-believers and people from other faiths. What kind of work can we do together? What's their life like? I've just always had a really, really strong curiosity about that. And so I've had the opportunity to really, really experience it firsthand. And so if you're feeling that, if you're feeling some part of that, You certainly don't have to jump into the middle of the ocean all by yourself. There are so many opportunities that CVM has on the short-term list of, what can I do? What are my abilities? I promise if you are a veterinarian or a technician, you have the ability to be super helpful in some developing country in some way. Your training, even if you're predominantly a small animal practitioner, no doubt that you could still be part of a large animal effort. No doubt that God can use your abilities in ways that you really never even thought of. So just because even if you're predominantly a large animal practitioner and you want to go on a trip where they're mostly spaying dogs and cats, don't worry. You'll be able to be of use, I promise. And we won't throw you to the lions at least not on the first trip.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. I think that as veterinarians, we often get lulled into this sense of having to have all the answers to all the questions all the time. And part of the thing that paralyzes us is that we don't necessarily see the end result or what we bring to the table or how we can be of use. And I appreciate what you said. And I certainly appreciate you bringing in our other veterinary professionals, veterinary technicians, because oh my goodness, the skills, the talents, the abilities that God can use. And again, you look at an organization like CVM and fail to realize that we're talking about veterinary assistants and veterinary technicians and veterinary students and pre-vet students and all of those folks that kind of come together. And the point is that in CVM that you have a wealth of experience, you have a wealth of relationship possibilities, people that are willing to help mentor you and to share in those experiences and help you walk through some of those difficult times. And if you fail to even embrace that the first time, then you've certainly missed out. So do you have something new on the horizon here coming soon?
Yes, actually, I'm blessed to be part of a trip that's coming up to Kenya, the western part of Kenya in January, with a group that's affiliated with CVM called Boscovet. It's led by Dr. Dan Haskins from Washington State. And I've been several times to help with the work over there. And it's just one of those amazing, if it hadn't been for God kind of efforts. It started out years ago when Dan and another veterinarian, Dr. Craig Humphreys, who's from Wisconsin, went on a vision trip. And on this vision trip, they didn't really know what they were going to find, but people in Kenya had written to CVM and requested that somebody come and see if they could work together. And so they go, and the first night they were in Nairobi, and Dan decided to go out for a walk. And he said the next thing he knew, he woke up on the sidewalk with a head injury, and he had been mugged. And everything he had been stolen. His wallet, his passport, his watch, everything gone. And nobody would have blamed Dan and Craig if they had turned around and gone home. They didn't. They persevered. They got replacement papers. They made the best of it that they could. And they went to this city, which is about 24-hour travel from Nairobi. And they met local people, and they decided that a work could be done there. And so fast forward now, many, many years later, and there's a school that has over 400 children in it as a result of this effort. There's many, many water wells that have been drilled that have completely changed the lives of people in this area. So many people have come to faith. It's just been an amazing thing. And if not for God, certainly it never would have happened. But because of faith, and not only faith, but putting actual effort, a lot of amazing things have happened through this ministry. And I can't wait to be reunited with close friends that I've made over there and gotten to know over the years. It's very exciting.
It's funny how even for a short period of time, you can forge friendships that will last a lifetime and into
Yeah,
eternity.
I was going to mention that. For sure. I can't tell you how many relationships have been formed on a week-long journey. You put a group of people together that's maybe had very little contact, maybe just through a Zoom meeting or a phone conversation. And yet after a week or two of intense work together and serving together and ministering together and listening to each other's stories and bearing each other's burdens, you're friends for life.
Yep.
It's been a really incredible, that really honestly has been one of the most incredible things about all of the CVM trips that I've done, is all of the teammates that I've shared experiences with. And it's been a really neat thing to see. I can't recommend it highly enough. That's one of the best things about the whole experience.
Well, I certainly appreciate you joining me today and sharing some of your life experience in balancing these things and all of the blessings that have come out of it. And for folks that are listening, if you are, I don't know, if there's something kind of scratching at the back of your neck, if you feel a little bit of that tug, head on over to www.cvm.org. Check out all of our short-term mission opportunities. Something may pop out at you. God has a funny way of doing that. Or pick up the phone. There's lots of folks at the CVM. Go to a conference, stop by the booth, talk to somebody, because it's in those conversations, those relationships, you begin to see what God is doing. And if you think for 1 second that it's just not possible, that you have these responsibilities, you have this practice, you have this work that you're tied to, that you can't quite get away. I love what you said. Don't let the practice own you. And when we begin to make your profession work for you, when you begin to see that place of where faith and vocation get tied together, that's the place where we learn how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you are blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.